Welcome into the latest edition of the Pump Fake, everybody. Jarrett Bailey with you, as always, continuing our tour around the NFL ahead of training camp and preseason with another team preview episode. And the Tennessee Titans are today. So joining me to preview Tennessee Titans, he's the host of the Music City Audible podcast, as well as the producer for the great Heed the Call podcast with Dan Hansis and Mark Sessler. Vape extraordinaire, Justin Graver. Hi, buddy. How are you?
Hi, how's it going, Jarrett? Thanks for having me on.
It's going great. You know, we were talking in the lobby that I have this spinning Steelers helmet purely because you had the Titans one, and I saw it on an episode of Heed the Call, and I was like, oh, man, that's awesome. I need to get the Steelers one. And so that happened very shortly after. So I made sure that I wanted to work that in, that you very much inspired a backdrop part for this.
Nice, that's great. You know, I've gotten a lot of people on the Music City Audible podcast, Titans fans commenting all the time, where can I get one of those spinning helmets? And I'm like constantly giving out the link to NFL Shop, and it's like, at what point do I need to contact?
I was going to say, you should see some sort of like monetary value for this.
Yeah. When do I get my cut of all the sales that I've contributed to? But, you know, shout out to my dad who actually got me this as a Christmas present like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was like, this is the perfect podcast background item. So
it is very, very good. And I mean, you got the like neon light too. It's overall just very ambient friendly for your background. I'm a very big fan.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, my fiance got me that one. It's been a long time of collecting objects until the background finally looks somewhat where I want it to look.
I'm trying to where me and my girlfriend are going to be moving soon. So like I'm trying to like plan out how to have like a better backdrop with all like more like random stuff behind me, because I've got a Joey Harrington bobblehead that I want to be prevalent in the background. So just like goofy little things like that I want everybody to be fully aware of when we do stuff like this.
It's funny when this is what you do all day. It's like because my fiance and I just moved to this house in Texas, and it's like we're looking at places, and it's like I'm constantly thinking, how can I will this place have a room that I can set my office up so that I can like make it's funny how much this comes into play when you're just planning out your life now.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something where like the desk might be just in the middle of the office with everything behind, so everything can be prevalent with some sort of bookshelf. But we'll see how everything plays out. People don't want to hear about our lives though, unfortunately. They want to hear about the Titans. Yeah. I feel like the only thing, or like the only time I've heard about the Titans this offseason is when people are talking about that nobody's talking about the Titans. Has that become annoying for you as a fan?
Absolutely, actually. Thanks for teaming up on this one. I went on a rant a few episodes ago on my podcast about how like I've had enough of the nobody's talking about Cam Ward. If we talk about them, we're going to get yanked off the air joke. Like, love Kyle Brandt. Love that he is like trying to talk about the Titans and give them some love, but he has said the same jokes about this like 2 or 3 times on different iterations of Good Morning Football. And it's like, okay, we've reached the point where the conversation is nobody's talking about Cam Ward. Cam Ward's the least talked about number 1 pick, more than we're actually talking about Cam Ward or the Titans. It's like the same refrain of like, nobody's talking about them. Okay, then stop saying that and just talk about them. Like that's where I'm at. It's like, okay, I've had enough of people saying nobody's talking about them. Just talk about them instead.
Yeah, I'm completely on board with that. What's your total outlook in terms of like, okay, if they do this in 2025, that can be considered a positive step in the right direction?
I think for this team this season, the win total is sort of irrelevant. And I say sort of because it's never like that's never going to be fully irrelevant. But what we need to see from the Titans in order to feel confident, mostly in Brian Callahan going forward, is progress. Because I think Titans fans entered last season saying the only thing that matters in 2024 is finding out if Will Levis is a franchise quarterback or not. And clearly he proved that he is not, unfortunately. So Titans move forward. Or maybe fortunately, if Cam Ward is good, it all works out for the better. We enter the 2025 season with a similar, like, we need to learn one thing, and that is Brian Callahan the head coach for this team moving forward? Because there were a lot of positive indicators from last season. I think he did a pretty incredible job actually calling plays amidst what was a roster full of deficiencies, one of the worst pass blocking groups in the league, with a quarterback that you never know when he's just going to do something crazy and turn the ball over.
That was fun though, right? Like from an outsider's perspective, like every week just wondering, all right, what crazy shit is Will Levis going to do? That was one of the more fun things from like weeks 1 through 5.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like what is the weekly Will Levis meme going to be? But when you're calling plays for an offense that you in the back of your mind are thinking like, please don't just don't mess this one up.
Right.
It totally hamstrings what you're able to call and what kind of offense. Like, was the offense we saw in 2024 what Brian Callahan wants to do or what he was forced to do because his right tackle gave up pressure in under 2.5 seconds a majority of plays, and Will Levis, one of his biggest weaknesses is handling and escaping from pressure. So that combination was terrible for the like drop back passing game. And even still, the Titans ranked in the top 10 in number of plays, number of 10 plus yard touchdowns, number of 25 plus yard air yard completions. Like they were still top 10 in these metrics. They were 5th in the NFL in 4th and 1 conversion percentage at 81%. So there are numbers that are encouraging from what Brian Callahan was able to do as a play caller last year, despite all of the roster deficiencies he had to mitigate with that play calling. But then there are other signs that are like, this cannot happen again. And some of those are like the Titans were, I think, allowed the 6th most first quarter points in the NFL at 93 points allowed in the first quarter. They were in a number of games that felt over by halftime because they were completely outclassed on all 3 phases of the game. Special teams was a huge concern throughout the season. You hope that's fixed with the hiring of Bones Fossil, who's one of the most highly regarded special teams coaches in the NFL. You get rid of a guy who was a first-time coordinator and bring in John Bones Fossil. That should be an improvement.
Been in the NFL since like before sliced bread was created. He's been in the NFL forever.
He just finished a stint in Dallas that lasted a long time.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's more famous for being a Rams special teams coordinator because of the season on Hard Knocks. And that was a long time ago. And he had a whole career in Dallas after that. And now he's coming.
The Jeff Fisher Los Angeles Rams. Good Lord.
So there's a lot of areas where you feel encouraged that things can be better, but like they can't lead the league in offensive penalties again. They can't get outclassed in all 3 phases in multiple games again. And they can't do this thing that they did all season long, which was they got worse as games progress. And like the second half was terrible. They had, I mentioned they got blown out in a bunch of games, but there were also a number of games where it was close at halftime. And then by the end of the game, it's a blowout. And so there are a lot of steps they need to take where they're just showing improvement and showing that Brian Callahan can be the head coach moving forward. Obviously, I haven't even mentioned Cam Ward. Obviously, a large part of that is Cam Ward playing well and looking like a franchise quarterback. But at the end of the day, the win total is less important than simply just seeing those areas that were not good last year be better in 2025.
Yeah, and I can applaud the fact that they've gone out of their way to at least try to bring in a lot of help for Cam Ward, whether it be the signing of Dan Moore. Like, to me, that was like paying like $50 for mall court Chinese food. Like, it's going to be all right, but $21 million a year for Dan Moore. I mean, as a Steelers fan, I know Dan Moore very well. He's not horrible. He's not great. I think on his best day, he can be, a slightly above middle class left tackle. On his worst days, there are going to be some ugly plays where he just flat out gets beat. But I, can appreciate the fact that they're trying to keep him protected. I love the selection of Elic Ayomanor, a guy that I was incredibly surprised fell to round 4. A lot of people thought he would go round 2. I was irritated that the Steelers did not take him and instead took Jack Sawyer. Oh, no disrespect to Jack Sawyer, but in terms of the things that they've done, also bringing in Tyler Lockett, like receiving core wise, you could do worse. And I think that having a nice combination of veterans with Ridley and Lockett, as well as Ayomanor, a guy who could earn a starting job right away, they're at least doing things to try to get him as much talent as they possibly could in the span of a few months.
Yeah, I think that they made a lot of investment in the offensive line and the pass catching group because they were so bad last year in both of those departments. On the offensive line, Dan Moore, it's an overpay. There's no doubt that it is an overpay, but the Titans have had such bad tackle play for so many years consistently now that they had to just they had to overpay to quote unquote fix the position. We'll see how fixed it is, but just getting to league average or even slightly below league average play from the tackles is going to be a massive improvement for this offense that's had probably the 32nd best tackle play in the league over the past 3-ish seasons, with guys like Andre Dillard and Nicholas Petit-Frere and just Dennis Daly and like a number of absolute disasters at the position, below replacement level players that were forced into starting roles because there's just no one else. So if you have to go overpay for the top left tackle on the market, even if he's not going to be a top 16 tackle in the NFL, like you need to do that just to feel like we don't have to worry about this position anymore. You bump J.C. Latham to right tackle where he played in college, and you're expecting him to be your best offensive lineman. He is the highest drafted guy on the offensive line. So you're expecting that your right tackle will be the place that you don't need to send help, hopefully, and that way you can give a little bit more help to Dan Moore if needed. They also bring in Kevin Zeitler to settle the interior of the offensive line, which the right guard spot wasn't bad last year, but it wasn't good either. It was maybe a little below league average, but now you're getting a guy that's a multi-time Pro Bowler who is coming in at the end of his career to be a veteran presence on the offensive line next to Lloyd Cushenberry, who has to recover from a torn Achilles, which TBD on how well he can bounce back from that. And then Peter Skoronski, another top 11 pick at left guard. You feel like the offensive line is going to at least be passable and competent, which they have not been. Cam Ward is good at navigating the pocket and escaping pressure and buying time. So you hope that a guy who has some pocket presence, which they didn't have last year, also helps improve the pass blocking. And then they don't do anything really in free agency to add receivers. I guess they signed Van Jefferson and Tyler Lockett, but neither of those guys are going to be high impact players. They can be veteran leaders, especially Tyler Lockett can be a veteran leader. Van Jefferson can give you snaps and like be where he's supposed to be, but obviously not a dynamic playmaker.
He'll be on the field because they need 11 people on the field.
Yeah, right. And like the rookie, it's week 1 and the rookies haven't fully grasped the offense. Right. So let's send Van Jefferson out there. Like we know he's going to at least be in the right spot. We don't know if he's going to be open or if he's going to break a tackle, but at least he'll be in the right spot. And then you hope that, you litter the back end of that receiver room with rookie receivers and hope that one or more guys can emerge. I actually think Chimere Dike is going to be a very valuable player. Their first pick, the first overall pick of the 4th round, wide receiver out of Florida, who had a very, very limited route tree in college, I think is a guy that they can use to stretch the field, get the ball in his hands at the line of scrimmage and in space and try to make plays. He's going to be more of a package player, but a guy that I think can have an impact when he's on the field. You mentioned Ayomanor. He's the only guy on the roster outside of Van Jefferson that really profiles as an X receiver. And I think because of that, there is a path to snaps for him early if he can pick things up and prove that he understands where he's supposed to be and can adjust to coverages on the fly like he'll need to. And then Xavier Restrepo signed as an undrafted free agent, the teammate of Cam Ward's in college, who doesn't have necessarily the athletic profile that you look for in an NFL wide receiver, but a smart, savvy route runner who gets open and has already a built-in connection with your quarterback can be valuable. We're not sure here in Tennessee if he's even going to make the team, but if he does, it's because he knows where to be when Cam Ward wants him to be there. And then they also draft a tight end in the 4th round, Gunnar Helm out of my Texas Longhorns. I threw up the hook on when you mentioned Jack Sawyer because Jack Sawyer ended our season, but
he sure did.
The tight end Gunnar Helm out of Texas, who's profiles as kind of that big-bodied pass-catching guy who can mix it up in the run game as well. Not going to be an elite level blocker at the tight end position, at least not as a rookie, but someone who can provide a mismatch in the passing game and give you the ability to run 2 tight end sets where either guy could go out for a route or stay into block alongside Chigakonkwo. So I think the Titans did a lot to add around Cam Ward to set him up for success. They don't have a top level receiver, a Jamar Chase, a Justin Jefferson, that kind of guy on this roster, but they have more than 3 capable starting receivers who can all fill different roles. Like they have probably 5 or 6 guys that could end up being in the rotation by the time we get to midseason and all the rookies are fully acclimated. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they deploy all these different like skill types at the receiver position and the tight end position.
Trying to think of like a good like mid 2000s NBA team comp for this receiving core. Maybe, I mean, we could stick in Tennessee. It might be like the Grizzlies with like Tony Allen and, had a Rudy Gay, where it's just like, okay, you got one guy who's better than average and, certain specialists when it comes to, your other role players. So,
yeah,
I think overall, like you can certainly do worse than what this. Like you could be the Browns where it's Jerry Jeudy and Deontay Johnson who just admitted that he didn't enter a game with the Ravens because it was cold. So like you could be in a situation like that, and I think that their situation is better than a lot of others around the league. Backfield wise, Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears. Tyjae dealt with an injury last year. Tony Pollard got the vast majority of carries. We'd expect that workload to look like. Is it going to be a little bit more for Tyjae Spears, a little bit less for Tony Pollard as he continues to age? Or are we going to continue to see it be more of like a 60-40 type situation? What's that going to look like in your opinion?
Brian Callahan spoke about this a little bit during the spring practices about that workload split and wanting it to be a little more even, because he mentioned that Tony Pollard played through a lower body injury last year and, toughed it out, but they want to keep him fresher for longer because this team, the media may not see it, fans may not even see it, but internally they believe they can go compete for the division this year. And if Cam Ward can have a Jaden Daniels level effect, maybe they can. I'm skeptical that is their ceiling. I think it's probably a little lower than that, but we'll see. This team at least is going to operate as if they'll be in the hunt towards the end of the year. So they want to keep Tony Pollard a little bit more fresh. And Brian Callahan mentioned that he wants that workload to be split a little more evenly between him and Tyjae Spears and even their third running back, which TBD how involved Kalel Mullings, 6th-round rookie out of Michigan, is going to be in this offense. But there was reporting from inside the building that this team wanted to add like a bruiser at running back, a thumper, a big-bodied, short yardage type of guy to this backfield room. They didn't sign anyone in free agency, and then here comes the draft. In the 6th round, they draft a guy who profiles as that big-bodied, short yardage type of back. So we'll see if he gets worked into the mix as well. And I think that we could see him in short yardage situations as early on as, this season. So could be sort of a 3-headed monster in the backfield. Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard are pretty interchangeable when it comes to their abilities in the run game and passing game. They're pretty similar runners. I think Pollard may be a little better between the tackles. Tyjae Spears may be a little more of a bounce it outside kind of guy. But I do think Spears is going to have a bigger workload. I don't know if it'll be 50-50, but I don't think it'll be as 60-40, 65-35 as it was last year either.
Yeah, friend of this very program, Tyjae Spears. So we hope for big things for him. Defensively, last year they bring in L'Jarius Sneed via trade. They had Chidobe Awuzie. Obviously, Chidobe Awuzie didn't work out the way that they thought that he would. He's now in Baltimore. But defensive line-wise, I mean, T'Vondre Sweat, a ginormous human being who played well as a rookie. People expecting a second-year leap from him. What's your overall outlook on the defense and what it could be? I feel like the bar probably not as high as people would have liked it to be, but quietly, if you just look at like yards per game and whatnot last year, it wasn't bad. EPA wise, it was a little bit worse. But what do you expect from this unit in 2025? And is there maybe a sneaky under the radar player that you think could make a bigger impact than some may think?
I think that this defense was vastly overrated statistically last year. I think that the reason their yards per game allowed was lower than, you may have thought just looking at box scores is because their special teams was so putrid that teams were constantly starting with plus field position, and also the turnovers with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, by the way. A lot of people don't remember Mason Rudolph was almost just as bad turning the ball over as Will Levis was. So the opponents started closer to the end zone than maybe, I don't know. I haven't looked at the exact stat on this, but I would guess that the Titans' opponent starting field position was probably the worst in the NFL on average last year. So I think that's why the yards...
I could pull up FTN Fantasy real quick and see if we can get those numbers. But yes, please continue.
See if you find that while I filibuster for a second. So I don't think the defense was particularly good. Now, they dealt with a lot of injuries last season. A lot of key players missed a lot of time. The secondary was eviscerated. The safety room was eviscerated by the end of the year. But they have some talent on this team. L'Jarius Sneed, Jeffrey Simmons. I think T'Vondre Sweat is a talented player. I think Amani Hooker is very underrated as a safety. But they also have massive holes. And I think the construction of the defensive line is a really interesting one because they have one of the stronger interior defensive line groupings in the NFL, including the depth behind Simmons and Sweat. But they have maybe the weakest group of edge rushers in the NFL, where your top guy is Arden Key or Draymond Jones. You signed Lorenzo Carter in free agency. He had 0 sacks for the Falcons last year. You draft a project edge rusher in Femi Oladejo in the 2nd round, who played linebacker for 3.5 out of 4 college seasons. He played inside off-ball linebacker, not on the line of scrimmage, outside linebackers. So their defensive end group, the guys rushing the passer, that's the biggest question mark on this team. Can they pressure the quarterback? They let Harold Landry go this offseason because his contract, they said, didn't match his production at this point in his career. He was getting overpaid. So now you need to have a pass rush by committee type of group here. And they also said that they have a philosophical strategy that they want to get beefier and stronger and bigger on at the defensive end spot, specifically because they want to be better at stopping the run and setting the edge, and they think that'll help them do that. And they also believe that power pass rush moves have a better, success rate in the long run than the speed type of moves and the finesse agility type of moves. So they want guys that can collapse the pocket and just walk their guys back into the quarterback and, condense those escape lanes. But will it work? Like, they don't have a lot of talent at that position, and we'll see if Femi Oladejo, he's a second-round pick. He's got to give him something, but he's more of like a 2-3 year kind of project player. He's not necessarily an instant impact guy. Arden Key can add some juice to the pass rush, but he's more of like your third rusher, rotational guy who comes in on third downs. Draymond Jones, bigger guy, versatile guy, but how's he going to do, rushing one-on-one against the best tackles in the league? I don't have a lot of confidence in that group. And then at the cornerback position, L'Jarius Sneed has been dealing. He was placed on IR last season after only playing 5 games. He misses 4 games with a quad injury, just like practice report, no participation out, no participation out. After 4 weeks of that, they throw him on IR. And it's like, why didn't you do that 4 weeks ago? And he hasn't participated in a single practice this spring. So it's TBD on it. Like, this is a quad injury that's taken 9 months to rehab. That seems concerning. He has a chronic knee issue that they knew about when they traded for him that sort of keeps him out of a lot of practice time. So is L'Jarius Sneed, when training camp starts, is he going to be on the field practicing? TBD, right. And that's a huge question mark because obviously that changes the whole makeup of the cornerback room. And then at the inside linebacker spot, they signed Cody Barton, who was with the Broncos last year and has played good football. He's not like a star linebacker, but he's a guy that can give them higher level play than I think they saw last year after they traded Ernest Jones. Mid-season, they trade.
What was up with that, by the way? Because didn't they trade for Ernest Jones before the season, and then they're like, "All right, thanks for those 7 games, bub."
Yeah, they did, and they actually flipped it for a better compensation than what they gave up. So they ended up netting positive there, and he was set to be a free agent at the end of last season anyway. He re-signed with the Seahawks, where they traded him to. So good for him. He got his contract that he was looking for. Titans, bumped up a draft pick, or I think a round or so, in draft compensation, and knew when they traded him that they were not a competitive team, and they were just trying to acquire assets for the rebuild that was coming. The new GM comes in and trades Kenneth. One of the first things he does as the new GM is trade away Kenneth Murray, who was terrible last year, to the Cowboys. So the Titans don't have there's not a lot of roster battles for starting spots on this team. The biggest one, I think, is that second starting inside linebacker. Who's going to start next to Cody Barton? Whoever it is, it's going to be either a 4th-round pick from last year who played like 90-something snaps, a 6th-round pick from last year who played like 100-something snaps, or it's an undrafted free agent from this year, or it's a free agent signing Anthony Orji, who has played some good football around the league a little bit, but never been a full-time starter. So they don't have like a locked-in guy for that role, and that's going to be interesting to see if that is a hugely impactful position, because it's not, they play probably 30% of snaps at the end of the day, coming in with like nickel and dime packages. But it's the only real spot that's up for grabs, I think, as far as starting spots go. So there's a little bit of star power on this defense in Jeffrey Simmons and L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed's got to be healthy and play football. Jeffrey Simmons also has to stay healthy. He hasn't made it through a full season in a few years now. I think part of that is they shut him down because they knew they weren't competitive, but also he's got to give him a little bit more. And can they rush the passer with the group of guys that they have? So I'm curious to see. I would expect this defense to be bottom third of the league, though, just in terms of like how they perform production wise, because they don't have a star pass rusher, they don't have a star middle linebacker, they don't have a star cornerback or safety unless L'Jarius Sneed is healthy. So there's not like a lot of top end talent.
Yeah, and I do find it funny that the Cowboys, for like the 2nd straight year, who always claim to be all in, like their biggest offseason moves are trading for Kenneth Murray and Kyer Elam. That is very silly to me. And when you brought up, the fact that, hey, they think they can compete and whatnot, and a lot of people would push back on that, but a lot of people probably push back on Houston in 2023 with a first-year head coach in D'Amico Ryans, rookie quarterback, and CJ Stroud. Not to say that exact thing will happen, but in an AFC South where there's still questions with Houston, especially offensive line wise and receiver wise, like how good can Stroud be with the pieces around him? Jacksonville still very up in the air. What did you make, by the way, of the Travis Hunter trade? We can stick in the division here. I felt like that was a massive overpay for a guy who, like, yeah, very fun in college. Cool that he played both ways. He's not going to do that at the NFL level at that level, and I feel like it was a massive, unnecessary swing to take.
I kind of agree with that. I think Travis Hunter is a very exciting player, was very deserving of winning the Heisman Trophy.
Seems like a great guy too. Like,
yeah,
nothing against him personally. It didn't make sense.
But if he doesn't play both sides of the ball, then you just traded up to number 2 and gave up a huge amount of future capital for a wide receiver who is not refined at the wide receiver position, or for a cornerback, which a great cornerback can change a defense, but is it worth that amount of draft capital that you gave up to move up and get him? And if he does play both sides of the ball, can you make it through the full season healthy? Because that's a lot more wear and tear on your body, and he's a special athlete, so maybe he can. I think my biggest concern as I look around the division with the Jacksonville Jaguars is James Gladstone, first-time GM, Liam Cohen, first-time head coach. Their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator are the first time they've been in that role as well. So it's a lot of people who don't have any experience doing the job that they are now doing. That doesn't mean they won't be successful, but there could be a learning curve there. And I'm very skeptical that, a lot of people in NFL media, obviously I'm a little biased. I don't just cover the Titans. I'm a fan of the Titans. So I sort of like look at all the other teams in the division with some of my Titans colored glasses. But, there's a lot of people assuming that because Baker Mayfield had a great year with Liam Cohen, that Liam Cohen's going to go unlock Trevor Lawrence and he's going to have the breakout season we've been waiting for him to have since he entered the NFL, and that he's finally got a good, competent head coach. Never mind that everyone said the exact same thing when they hired Doug Peterson, who had been an accomplished head coach in the league before, and Liam Cohen has not. That it's just all going to work out. It's like, how many times have we seen the star offensive coordinator, play caller, go to be a head coach and not understand that there's a lot more to this job than just calling plays, and like you got to manage everything, and that can affect the performance of the play caller and head coach, and it doesn't work out. And I don't want to use it the only extreme example in Adam Gase, which is like the most extreme, but there have been numerous times where the star offensive coordinator fails to be a good head coach. And we're all just assuming, and I say we are all as very generalized, just assuming that Liam Cohen's going to go unlock Trevor Lawrence. Like, let's see it. Let's see it happen, and then we can assess if that's going to happen. So I think when you look at the Titans, where they stack up in the division, I think that, like, I don't know what the betting markets say, but I think they should be third best favored to win the division ahead of the Colts. I would say, like, the Texans should be expected to win the division.
That was my next question. Do you think they're going to do better than Indy, who is...
I do.
I mean, the quarterback Daniel Jones not tickling your fancy?
I think the quarterback situation is a big deal. And again, I am biased. Obviously, I believe that the Titans made the right selection in Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward could be the best quarterback in this division within a couple of years. I think, he will be the second best quarterback in this division. I mean, I think it's going to be pretty even between Stroud, Lawrence, and Cam Ward, and week to week, we're going to be wondering, like, who is the best quarterback in this division? Like, I have a very, very high opinion of Cam Ward since long before the Titans were going to be the team drafting him. I was the one pounding the table in the Nashville market saying in January, the Titans need to draft Cam Ward, when the entire media narrative was the Titans are going to trade out of this pick. The Titans are looking to trade this pick. The Titans like Abdul Carter. Like, that was such a overused narrative even in the Nashville market, and I felt like I was the only voice saying the Titans need to go draft Cam Ward. He is a special prospect. So I obviously have a very high opinion of him. I could be wrong. I've put a lot of my draft evaluating reputation on the line by pounding the table for Cam Ward. So we'll see how that pans out. But I think a good quarterback can change everything. And you mentioned the Texans 2 years ago when they drafted CJ Stroud, and there were question marks about him as a prospect coming out. And he wasn't even the first quarterback taken in his class. And obviously he turned that team around. Jaden Daniels did it in Washington last year. I do think Cam Ward can do it for the Titans. But to me, this goes back to how I started this podcast. The bigger question is Brian Callahan a good head coach? because DeMeco Ryans is a good head coach.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn, there were questions about, what happened in Atlanta, and he had to go work his way back up to the head coach ranks as a DC for a while. But there's no doubt that he was a phenomenal head coach and stabilizer and leader for the Commanders last season. Brian Callahan has to be that for the Titans for them to win games. And Cam Ward could be great, but if he's not getting the support from, the coaching staff and the rest of the team, then it's not really going to matter. So I think that's the biggest question. Like, I have a very weird feeling about Cam Ward in that usually it's all uncertain with a rookie, but I'm also a Dallas Mavericks fan. And I remember when the Mavericks drafted Luka, thank you. I remember when the Mavericks drafted Luka Doncic, and there was just something about him where it was like, I know I don't have to wait and see that this guy is good. Like, I know this guy's going to be good. There's something about it. And I feel similarly with Cam Ward. And like, I was hopeful for Will Levis, obviously, but I never, like, there were huge questions about his deficiencies that I thought could severely limit him. And I was hoping that he would just be better than those deficiencies, and he wasn't. And like Marcus Mariota, I was very high on Marcus Mariota as well, but you can always tell that, like, especially after he got hurt, that like he's not seeing the field well, he's not trusting what he's seeing, he's not throwing the ball, he's holding onto it too long. With Cam Ward, I don't know what it is. There's just something where I feel like, I don't know he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, this feeling could result in him just being like the 16th best quarterback, but I feel like he is going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Like, that's why I'll feel comfortable saying that definitively. And so I think that changes everything for this team, because it's not just a season about finding out if Will Levis is your franchise quarterback. It's like, okay, you have the quarterback. Now what can you do with him? So I think they could compete for the division, but I think that they're likely a year away from actually doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a good quarterback can take away I shouldn't say any, most question marks around the rest of the roster. I think a lot of people had questions about Washington last year and their defense, and rightfully so. But we saw how special Jaden Daniels was. On the flip side of that, at least in my opinion, it doesn't matter how good the rest of the roster is. If you don't have a quarterback, that means piss all. And you're going to, be stuck in at maximum, you're going to be in purgatory, like a team like, my Steelers, who haven't had a quarterback in a while, where, the rest of the roster is pretty solid, but then, you're trotting out Kenny Pickett or, our mutual friend Mason Rudolph. Then you're going to be stuck in a place which is maybe even worse than just being flat out bad. Because at least if you're flat out bad, you're at the top of the draft, you can try again. If you're not, then you're going to be, drafting 17th and trying to trade up and find that guy. And it's just not a good place to be in. Division wise, I mean, I would still softly write in the Texans to win the AFC South. Again, the offensive line does concern me a little bit, as does the lack of pass catchers. But I would say there's a greater than zero chance that we see a little bit of a repeat of 2023, and Cam Ward's just awesome and catapults them to the AFC South title. I don't think that there's a 0% chance that happens. I think it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, I would still pick the Texans to win the division. I would pick the Titans to finish second, though. And I mean, I just talked about why I have doubt around the Jags, but like, I got to see it first, and like,
sure.
So I don't need to rehash that. I think the Colts are going to be like a team that has a decently good roster that's well coached, that is just completely held back by quarterback play, especially if they maybe Daniel Jones starts and plays all 17 games. But I feel like this regime needs to know if Anthony Richardson is anything, but they also need to save their jobs and win games. Right. So maybe they don't go back to Richardson, but
plus he's dealing with the bum shoulder still, apparently. Yeah. Like, nobody seems to know what's up there. Can we stop with the Daniel Jones thing, by the way? I am over that. Like, I have never seen a guy parlay a 15 passing touchdown season where Saquon Barkley carried him into the playoffs into so much money. Good for him. Like, he all-time bag getter, Hall of Fame money guy. Stop. Enough. Yeah. Like, this is north of stupid at this point. We know that he's just not a starting caliber quarterback. I think I saw, and I'm not trying to call this guy out or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure it was Rich Eisen who, like, they were talking about quarterbacks like on their final chance, and somebody brought up Daniel Jones. He's like, I don't think this is his final chance. Rich, what more do you got to see, man? Like, all due respect, he's the best of us, but god damn, what else do you need to see from Daniel Jones to say, actually, I think he just sucks. Maybe we can just call it like it is. He's not good.
There's always that potential, and then you have guys like Sam Darnold have the year they had last year, and that just like perpetuates the potential cycle for guys like Daniel Jones. It's like maybe he could have a Sam Darnold renaissance. You never know.
Sam Darnold, though, like I saw him tear up the Cowboys defense 3 days after he had mono. Like at least I know that there was some talent there. Daniel Jones, man, like what is the highlight of Daniel? Like that run where he tripped on Thursday Night Football against the Eagles? Like is that his best career play?
It's not even a pass. That's where we're at with Daniel Jones.
That's my point exactly. I'm just over it. It's nothing against Daniel Jones as a guy, but my God, enough is enough. I feel like that way with like a lot of different quarterbacks. This is a different extent of quarterback, but I know we're getting past the Titans here, but I do want your thoughts. Like, I feel like a lot of people on Twitter like really overrate Geno Smith. I'm just like, okay, Geno Smith, great story, throws a pretty deep ball. He's also going to throw a heartbreaking red zone interception that makes you rip your hair out. I'm not all in there either. We need to slow down on some quarterbacks.
Yeah, I kind of agree on the Geno Smith thing. Like, I covered a Seahawks game for Heed the Call last year, and in the recap, I said like Geno was good, not great, and like I said he was good, and like
that was
Seahawks
the perfect encapsulation of Geno Smith.
And Seahawks fans like just storm the YouTube comments and the Reddit threads with like, "Oh, Graver calling the Seahawks like said Geno Smith wasn't good," and it's like, no, I didn't say he wasn't good. I said he wasn't great. Yeah. He was good, and I'm like using advanced stats to like back up my opinion with like his average depth of target, and it's like, well, there were 7 dropped passes in that game, so actually he was great. And it's like, okay, but he's like checking down the ball a lot, and then like there are good throws in there, but let's like I do if to use a Dan Hans's phrase, the cognoscenti is very high on the Geno Smith thing because they watch the film and so they know better. And it's like I also watch the film, but that's okay.
and my buddy Matt Verderam from Sports Illustrated, like we had this conversation earlier this year, and I said something like, I'm not trying to call anybody out. He's like, I'll call them out. Shut the fuck up. Like we get it.
Hey, tell Matt to unblock me on Twitter. I don't know what I did or why he blocked me, but like a couple years ago, I guess we went back and forth over something, and maybe I touched a sensitive nerve or something, but he blocked me. So if you could undo that would be very much appreciated.
I mean, Matt's been on this show more than just about anybody, and I feel like him and I have a pretty good friendship, and I know him pretty well. I don't know what would have caused that, so there will be a text sent. Don't you worry. I will. I will get to the bottom of this. I've got nothing better to do on July 2nd. Yeah, that is strange to me. Oh man, we're learning a bunch of things about our friend Matt Verderam today. I don't know. Is there anything else that we should touch on real quick? Anything else that really pisses you off about football that you want to get off your chest?
I will give one more final take and another reason that I'm very confident in Cam Ward and what he's going to do this year. To me, there is I feel like I'm the only one who cares about this. And I'm working on a video now for my YouTube channel that really dives deep on this topic. But VR in the NFL as a quarterback training tool. Obviously, there was a lot of publicity around Jaden Daniels using VR last year, and he talked a lot about it, credited a lot of his success to it. Cliff Kingsbury has talked a lot about it. Dan Quinn's spoken about it. I've done a lot of research into this. Cam Ward is using the same VR simulator now that Jaden Daniels used last season, and I think that is a huge deal, and it's not being talked about at all. And I don't know what the actual effects of this training tool would have on any normal person. It's not going to turn me into a Pro Bowl quarterback, right? You got to have a baseline ability to throw the ball and mentally process. But what it can do to get quarterbacks extra mental reps, I think is severely underrated. So I'm very excited that Cam Ward is using this VR technology. I'm making a whole video on which quarterbacks in the NFL are using it and how Jaden Daniels used it to find so much success as a rookie and how Cam Ward can do the same. But Drake May is another quarterback who used it last year. And we saw Drake May have a pretty incredible rookie season given the circumstances and the roster around him and the coaching around him. I feel like Drake May had a great rookie year, a guy that's been using VR. JJ McCarthy is a guy that was using VR to get mental reps while he was rehabbing from his torn meniscus last year. I think that I don't know if he's going to be good or not. Nobody knows yet. But those quarterbacks, specifically Jaden, Cam, I'm really going to be tracking their careers, the first couple of years of their careers, to see if they're if Jaden continues to be, an unbelievably good quarterback for how much experience he has. If Cam Ward hits the ground running, if Drake May has, an even better season than last year, now that he's got some competent coaching and better pieces around him, if JJ McCarthy comes in and keeps the Vikings sort of playing at the same level they were at last year, Jalen Milroe, another guy using it, and the Browns rookie quarterbacks, they've been using it with Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders to get them extra mental reps since it's such a crowded room. They don't have, enough practice time to get everybody the right reps. So if one of those guys gets to play, if Jalen Milroe gets to play in Seattle, if Sam Darnold goes down or whatever, I'll be very curious to see, is this a real thing? Does this have real benefits? Is this going to change the future of the league? Because I think that it's a tool that every rookie quarterback should probably be using, because you get all those growing pains out of the way, things that get you benched and get your coach fired, you get them out of the way in a VR headset, and really like the amount of reps that you can get, if Cam Ward is using it all summer, it'll be like when he takes his first snap in the NFL, it'll be like year 3 versus year 1 in terms of the mental experience. I'm very intrigued by this technology and curious to see how it unfolds this season.
No, I love that. And I also love the fact that you brought up JJ McCarthy, because this is something else I want to talk about. I have multiple Vikings friends, whether it's my buddy Thor Nystrom, who is constantly on the daily. I see at least 9 JJ McCarthy tweets from him. It's incredible. But the Vikings fans who are just so, maybe aggressive is the wrong word, but that's the word I'm going to use. When they see somebody say, I think the Vikings, they're certainly going to take a little bit of a step back. They won 14 games last year with Sam Darnold. JJ McCarthy's the second coming of Christ. Like, bro, we don't know if McCarthy's going to be good. Like, you can think he's going to be good all you want. We don't know. And last year for the Vikings felt like such a big magic carpet ride that had such an abrupt landing where everybody just had to tuck and roll and hope for the best. I don't see a 14-win season coming from Minnesota. I think largely their roster is, pretty solid. But that's everybody who's just assuming that JJ McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell's a great head coach, but everybody assuming that JJ McCarthy is just going to step in and be, the second coming of Fran Tarkenton and Brett Favre rolled into one. Like, let's slow down a little bit when it comes to that and not get so aggravated when people are like, yeah, I've got some questions about JJ McCarthy, because they're fair to have.
Yeah, I agree. I liked him as a prospect coming out. I didn't love him as a prospect coming out. I think he has the ability to make really good throws, but he wasn't asked to do a lot at Michigan. He's going to have to do more in the NFL. He's got a great support system. He's got the best receiver in football. He's got a really good head coach. He's got a good offensive line. So I do think that, or they at least made an effort to make it better than it was last year. Well, I guess we'll see if it's actually good. So I think that he could have success, but I think it's going to look very different than the Vikings last year. And let's just acknowledge the fact that when you win 14 games in the NFL, odds are you're going to take a little bit of a step back. Even if your team can be as good or even better than it was the previous year, but a lot of shit has to break right for you to win 14 games. That's a lot of games. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. All right. I think we've hit every nail on the head that we wanted to hit today. Plug everything that you want to plug, my friend, where everybody can find your Titans content and what's coming. I guess in the next month or so with Heed the Call.
Appreciate that. Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Titans Film Room, on YouTube at Music City Audible. That's the name of our podcast, and I also do some more narrated style videos there, so check out the Music City Audible on YouTube. I do produce, as you mentioned, Heed the Call podcast that covers the entire league, but we are on a little bit of a summer break now until training camps start up, so about a little less than 3 weeks, I think we'll be back. But for now, that show is on hiatus. So you can go listen to old episodes if you're interested. But I would say go find me on Twitter first, and then you can explore everything else I'm doing from there if you care.
I love it. All right. From a personal standpoint, you can go and read the first 2 parts of the top 30 quarterbacks of the Super Bowl era panel I put together. Both Dan Handers and Mark Sessler were on that panel. So a little bit of Heed the Call connectivity here. 30-11. Yeah, the first 2 parts are out. 10-1 is yet to come. So that'll be coming out soon. Your boy Warren Moon is on part 2. So there is some Titan/Oilers representation already on the list. Nice. Let's see what else is coming on the USA Today side of things. Quarterback superlatives very soon. There's going to be, I emptied the clip already a little bit on JJ McCarthy and Geno Smith, but there will be more. And predicting the next calendar year in the NFL. So throughout this season and then the off season, I'll wait. I hate mock drafts, but I'm going to do one for the piece just because it makes sense to do it. So what the NFL will look like come August 1st, 2026, what I think will happen. So a bunch of stuff coming. Be sure to follow on Twitter at JBaileyNFL for all of it. Justin, my friend, this is a lot of fun. I appreciate you for joining me.
Yeah, I had a great time talking to you, Jarrett. Thanks again for having me on, and maybe we can do it again someday.
Absolutely. Everybody make sure to subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a review. If you're listening as a podcast, we'll talk very soon. It's a pump pick.